Hi, ladies, and welcome to episode 10 of the InnerStrength Empowerment Hour. I am Lori DePietro Standen, and unfortunately, Lori and Joanne are going to be joining us in the comments today because, on top of everything else, my internet is down. So I'm on cellular data right now. I can't use my laptop. It has been, for anyone who's been following this fiasco, technical problems for a couple of weeks now. I hear from Joanne that there is a solar flare happening, so that is known to mess with technology issues. So I don't know if any of you guys are having technology stuff, but if you are, then that could be why. So anyway, I do appreciate you tuning in for this, and as I promised, I am doing a recap of last week because we had sound issues. And then also I'm going to talk about depression and anxiety, which is something that so many people are struggling with this time of year. So I can see your comments. So please feel free to come in and interact because this is a really heavy topic and it's something that we all need to talk about. So building a life that you love, which is what we talked about last week, is so important, and it's not something that people tell you how to do. So when you're growing up, most of us, got some instruction on, how to get an education, maybe how to get a job, a good job. You may have gotten some financial instructions. I didn't. And you may have had conversations about what kind of person to marry. But in terms of actually building a life that you really love and are excited about, that's not something that we're ever really taught. I remember when I first enrolled in college, and my parents were insistent that I take business classes, which is kind of ironic because I did not want to take business classes. I wasn't even in the least bit interested, but I signed up for those things because that's what my parents wanted. And then I ended up switching my majors. I ended up majoring in English with creative writing and minoring in dance. So it's just totally different than what they wanted. But the point is that there wasn't a conversation about what could make me happy. It was more like, what's going to make you enough money? What's going to make you money? And that was business classes. My cousin, who's a little older than me, went through the exact same thing with his parents. So we aren't given instruction on how to really live a life that we're excited about. And so what happens is we just kind of get into this cycle, and we end up just working all the time, doing the same things over and over again, and really getting into a rut, really being stressed out, and it gets taken out on our health. And we end up pouring from an empty cup for years and years. Most of the women that I talk to have poured from an empty cup for so many years that they barely recognize themselves anymore. And that's not leading a life that you love. So that's what I want to talk about today. Is we're not meant for status quo. I always say this. I know you guys have heard me say it before, but we are on a tiny rock in the middle of an enormous universe, hurtling around an exploding ball of fire at 65,000 miles an hour. I mean, it's miraculous. And yet all we want to do is just stay as small and safe and comfortable as we can. That's not what we're meant for. And that's why we're not happy when we try to do that. Life is about change. It's about growth. And so building a life that you love is based on moving forward. And not just staying stuck. So whenever I talk about this topic, and I've been talking about it for years now, Joanne says it feels like that this week. Yeah. Oh my gosh. All the women in my group know that this it has been, you can't make this up. The stuff that has happened this week, you can't make it up. Like if I made this up and said it to somebody, like they're going to be like, oh, that's not even believable. That's the kind of week I've had. So, but, I don't let that stuff take me out. I recognize that those things are part of life. And, so I this week I'm definitely a study in perseverance, but it is, I still love my life. And so that's what I want to talk to you about is why. Okay, so whenever I talk about this, and I've spoken about it before, we talk about the foundation. Okay, so the foundation of everything is your physical health. Because if you think about times in your life when really important things happened, if you didn't feel well during those times, then that's what you're going to remember the most. Okay, you're going to remember, I was really sick at that point. I was exhausted that day. Your physical self is what colors everything. That is the filter you see everything through. So when we're consistently and chronically not feeling well because we're overweight and we have all these other symptoms, in my case, it was tendonitis and bursitis and digestive issues, sleeping issues, hormonal issues. I know many of you can relate to those things. When we are approaching life from that place, it colors everything, because you are exhausted and you're overwhelmed because of how you're feeling. So that is the foundation for everything. So because that really makes up your thoughts and feelings. Okay, so if you think of it like a triangle and your physicality is the basis, that makes up your thoughts and feelings, right? Because if I am feeling great, then I'm feeling positive. I'm feeling good. I feel excited. If I'm feeling exhausted, then I'm already overwhelmed. So if something happens, I'm immediately more overwhelmed than I should be because I don't feel well. And, many of us too like to, that's my tendency is to try to figure out who I can blame for that. So that's the other thing is maybe you're not such a nice person when you're irritable. And so that's going to color then your actions, which is the other part of this triangle. Because when you're not feeling positive, you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling irritable, you're not going to feel like making any kind of changes. You're going to want to put in the least amount of effort as possible because you're not feeling well. You don't want to do anything more. So that is going to keep you stuck. So getting your physical health right is everything. Joanne says chronic digestive issues can keep you from participating in even the smallest things. Absolutely. I deal with many clients with IBS or other digestive issues. I was not diagnosed with IBS. But I was on Prilosec for 8 years for chronic heartburn and bloating. And, everything I ate, I felt like made me sick. Like I just never felt well. I would go to bed nauseous every night. So yeah, it's, I was exhausted too. Chronic fatigue will take you out of your life right now. I felt like I had about 3 good hours a day. So these are things that you can't deny that is coloring everything. So this time of year when I see these memes about, life is short, eat all of the delicious food and, eat the cake and all of this stuff, I think just the opposite. Like life is short. Like, don't you want to feel well while you're here? You don't want to be sick all the time. You can still have treats and indulge, but when you do that all the time, then you just feel like crap. And that's what is constantly on your mind. So getting your physical health right is the first thing. And I think a lot of women get this wrong because I will hear women say, I got to get my mind right before I do this. And I get what you're saying, but at the same time, your mind is not going to get right. But if your physical health is not there, you're not going to really be able to get there until you get your physical health in order. And so I'm sure Joanne and Lori can pipe in there, or other people in my program. But the first phase of my program is designed to get you out from under that. And it's only 5 days, but at the end of the 5 days, you're feeling so much better that you're able to get your head in the game. And because before that, if you're not feeling well, you're usually really, really overwhelmed and it's just too hard to move forward. So for those of you out there who are thinking to yourself that same thing, like I just got to get my mind right. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that, but also I can remember my mom saying it, like, women especially with the diet, is like, I got to get in the mindset to do this. But you're feeling, the reason you have trouble getting in the mindset is because you're overwhelmed. So that's something to consider, is that you've got to take the steps first. Joanne says, I can promise you your mind will not get right without the first step of getting your eating right. Yeah, because that's the other thing is, the bulk of your serotonin, which is that feel-good chemical that just keeps you on a level playing field with the rest of the world, that is made in your gut, almost all of it. And so when your gut's not healthy, then you're not producing that chemical the way you should. That's a side effect that I hear across the board with women who take my program, is that they just feel so much better mentally and emotionally. They feel more stable. And that's a big part of it. Because when you get your gut healed and you can start producing your serotonin the way you should, that's also where your estrogen is metabolized. So it starts to stabilize your hormones. All of that stuff starts to fall into place. And that makes you feel less like a crazy person. It makes you feel less irritable. I know that also Lori, who I believe is with us as well, LT, talked about how much better her relationship was with her kids since she changed her diet, because she's not so irritable all the time. And I can vouch for that as well. Like, just being done all the time is something that, I don't know why anybody wanted to be around me, honestly, because I was just so irritable. Lori says, you're more clear after the first 5 days and hopeful. It's a great start to keep you going. Right. And that's what it's designed to do, is just get that monkey of food addiction off your back, stabilize your blood sugar, start to get your gut in order. And even that after 5 days just makes you feel amazing. So the point is that you really need to get your physical house in order first. That's the key. And it's like a domino effect in the rest of your life. So that's just step one, though, right? So I talked about the 5 things that are the building blocks for a life you love. The second thing is, and Joanne says, it's a game changer. I'm still shocked, actually, at how much different my mental health is because I healed my gut. Yeah, it's across the board. It really is amazing and so awesome to see women finally feel empowered and in control and confident and happy. I hear a lot, like, I'm dancing around the house. They just feel lighter mentally. That's what I hear a lot. And that's everything right there. So the next building block of this is your emotional and your spiritual health. Okay. So, that's what starts to change when you get your physicality in order. And, that really has to do with, the boundaries that we set and the meaning that we bring to life. That getting we do a lot of mindset work in the program, because your emotional health is that script that's running through your head all the time, right? So you always have this script. We all have it. And most of us, that script is just, it's awful. We're never saying anything nice to ourselves. We're always like, how could you have failed again? You're weak. You can't do this. You're stupid. Even if it's not something like, I wouldn't say that I knew exactly what my script was saying, because sometimes it's not like really loud like that. It's playing in the background where you don't even notice it because it's been playing most of your life. So that is where people really get into self-sabotage, because they're not aware of what that script is saying. And when you're not aware of it, then you're just sort of playing along. It's running the show and you don't even know it. So we work a lot on uncovering what the script says. If you have limiting beliefs in your life, like, I will never be a weight that I'm happy with, I'm never going to get healthy, I'm never going to find a good relationship, I'm never going to have enough money, whatever those things are. And I had all those things, so I get it. What that does is it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So think of it this way. If I were going for a job interview, okay, and I was 100% sure that I wasn't going to get it. I have this script running that, like, this is a great job and I know that I'm not good enough for this. I'm never going to get it. I'm going to walk in there and present like somebody who's not getting the job. And that's what that person is going to see. That's what I'm going to be exuding. Even if I mentally am like, okay, I'm still going to give this my best shot, people can see it. People can see if you're not confident and you don't think you can do it. Whereas if I walk into that interview 100% convinced that I am the person for this job, they're going to be lucky to have me, I'm going to work hard, I've got this on lock, they're going to see that too. So that's what a self-fulfilling prophecy is that what you think becomes reality. So it doesn't even have to be like all woo-woo, it's easy to understand how we can affect our own reality just with our thoughts. So getting clear on what your limiting beliefs are, because that's number one, is you just got to know what they are saying. What is that voice saying? Tune in. And then once you get that clear, then you can figure out how you need to flip the script. So when I was getting healthy, in losing weight, I realized that there was a script running through my head that was saying, you can't do this. You're never going to do this. This isn't going to work. And so I made it a point to have a mantra on a daily basis, like several times throughout the day. So what I did is every time I would go to the bathroom, so I would look in the mirror and say, my body is healing itself. I'm getting stronger and healthier every day. And I would do that all day long until it became my new script and I didn't have to say that anymore. So that's what I'm talking about, is uncovering what your problems are, what is holding you back, because things can hold us back that are clear back from our childhood that aren't even happening anymore. We're living in the past. So we need to update our script so that it is in alignment with what we want. Joanne says, true for parenting too. It's hard to stand your ground with teenagers when you don't believe in yourself. Right. It's so hard, to stand your ground in your marriage, if you're married, any kind of relationship, especially at work. And even with your kids, you become a pushover. So there are so many things that this affects. So, getting that part right affects every area of your life, not just your physical health, but it affects your relationships and your work environment. Because when you decide that you're able to reach your goals, then everything changes. What the energy is that you're putting out into the world changes. And it's revolutionary in your life because you're showing up as a different person. And it's also about taking aligned action with, part of what causes all of our anxiety is that we want this, but our actions are doing this, right? So they're not in alignment. So you have to think about, what do I really believe? Okay. About my life, about life in general, about what I want. And what are my actions saying? Are my actions in alignment with that or not? And most of the time they're not. And so that's going to cause anxiety and friction with us. And so that's the other thing, is that I was telling, some people last night in my group, therapy is great. I've had therapy and it's amazing. But when you don't have to figure everything out to take aligned action. Just like I was saying with your physicality, if you know that you need to make changes, you don't really need to go through all of the mental acrobatics to get to the point where you can make a change. You just say, okay, here's what I want, and I'm going to take action that aligns with that. That alone makes you feel whole. Joanne says, change your agreements. Yeah, we talk a lot about agreements in the group as well. When you did your talk on the 4 agreements, it actually changed my life. Yeah, so when you are, your agreements are the agreements you have with yourself. So if you, let's just say that you have a mom, like I did, who is very critical and says a lot of negative things about you all the time, and it makes you feel like crap, and it makes you not believe in yourself. Then what your agreement is that whatever my mom says about me is true. And therefore, that determines how I'm going to feel and behave. That's your agreement with yourself. So you have to change your agreement. You have to decide that just because my mom says something or believes something doesn't mean it's true. And it actually doesn't even mean anything about me. Most of the time when people have like strong thoughts or feelings about us, it doesn't even have anything to do with us. It's their own baggage. It's the filter that they're seeing everything through. So when you change your agreement, which is what I did with my mom, which is that those are her thoughts and feelings and don't have anything to do with me, that's a freedom. Then I was free from that and I was able to move forward. So that's the other thing, is looking at what do I actually believe about a situation and what needs to change. Marcy says, our minds are the greatest muscle we have. Keep trying every day. We're all a work in progress. Yes. So it doesn't happen overnight, but when you start to recognize what's happening, then you can start to flip the scripts that you have. And that makes all of the difference. So we have first the physical health, because that's the foundation. You can't really get out from under anything as long as you're feeling like crap. Then you have your emotional and spiritual health. You've got to look at your agreements. You've got to look at your thoughts and feelings. You've got to look at that script running in the back of your head so that you can get out from under all of that and move forward. And then the third part is meaning. That's the third building block. Everybody, I always encourage people to write a mission statement for their lives, because it really helps you focus on the legacy that you want to leave. And that sounds really big. Like, when you talk about leaving a legacy, you think, oh, this person has to be wealthy, or you have to be like Mother Teresa or somebody. Everyone leaves a legacy, even if it's just with the small amount of people that we touch. It is about what impact do I want to have on the world. So I said this to someone recently during one of our mindset talks, and she said, well, I want to be a good wife and a good mother. So that's great, but that's not a mission. That doesn't speak to any of her personal qualities and what she brings to the table as a person. Okay, so that's what your mission statement needs to be. And for me, it's always been about helping people. That's been the thread that I can, even when I was little, that I can look back on. So that's what, got me into inner city youth work. It's what got me into work with helping women get out of prostitution in South Africa. It's what got me into working with orphanages in Mexico. So and it's what got me into what I'm doing today. It's always been about making an impact in that way through helping people, and personal connections, making personal connections with people. So that's, I know that when I'm living my meaning, when I have that as part of my life structure, that I'm going to feel happiest. That's, if I don't have that in my life, then I'm not going to feel fulfilled. So you need to look at, where are you living out the meaning in your life? Because if you feel like you're not, if you feel like, you're just like constantly, just doing the same things over and over again, and, being a maid at home and a cook, and, that those are, it's not that those things aren't important, but it's that they may not have meaning for you. In the way that you need it. And if you don't have that, you're not going to be building a life that you love. So maybe there's something else you can take on. There's changes you need to make in order to live out your meaning and feel important. And that's across the human spectrum. All human beings crave meaning. And so it's important that you look at that in your life. And then that leads into your focus and your goals. We all know that, when you plan a vacation, a lot of times that'll just make you excited. You'll just feel in a better mood because you have something to look forward to, right? Or, people who are planning a big event or something like that. That's the way your focus and your goals are. They keep you moving forward, and, it creates excitement in your life to have those things. So looking at your, the goals for your life, if you might feel stuck and you might feel stagnant. And so your goals can definitely have to do with your physical health, But oftentimes they're outside of that. You know, you might have work goals. You might have, excuse me, you know, you might have career goals. You might have, you know, goals in your community. You might, you know, so you might be, you know, I want to build a house. You know, I want to start a sanctuary, you know. Having these things that we're working towards is, it makes life interesting. And so when you don't have those, life can feel very stagnant and very stuck. And so take some time to figure out what you think those things are for you. And they can be small. They don't have to be huge. But, you know, it can help. It always helps to know what direction your life is going in. And so again, you know, living your life the same day over and over again is, for most people, not going to be fulfilling. So that's where these goals come in. And you have to be okay with change in order to have a goal, right? Because a goal means something is going to be different. Your focus is something is going to be different than it is right now. And so don't be afraid of change. You know, that's the other thing, is we just get so rooted in our comfort zones. And all of this is really about being okay being outside of your comfort zone. That's where all of the really, really good stuff happens. And so, you know, we get very rooted in sameness, and that's just not fulfilling, and it's not worth it. Joanne says revisiting your goals periodically is important because they change as you change. Absolutely. So my goals have definitely changed over time. You know, with my business and the things, you know, we're moving in a different direction with my business with our meal delivery service. And I mean, so it's always looking a little bit different. You know, the big vision is the same, but the goals within that are always looking different depending on, you know, it's a moving target, you know, and it's, you know, and you might achieve something and think, okay, now here's my next thing. Or you might even get near something and think that's not really it. And then you change focus. But having that focus is so important. It's what makes your life so exciting. You know, it's part of doing what you love. And then the last part of that is healthy relationships. That's the other building block. So that is huge. You have to find your tribe, and your tribe is people who believe in you and want the best for you and are positive in your life, positive forces. Lori says, I have many goals now. It goes beyond my weight. Before, I could only see weight because of narrow thinking. Yeah. So we get stuck in in sameness, and but I think that this is a really good point that Lori is making, because it does all start with your physical health. Because her physical health was so bad, because she was so encumbered by her weight, she could not see beyond it. And think about how many times we do that, like, oh, when I get this weight off. It's like your life is on hold. And it doesn't have to be that way. You can start getting the weight off, and then, you know, your mental and emotional health, if you're working on that, then that only helps you to become healthier as a whole person. And then you can set goals that you can actually achieve in your life outside of your health. And so it's almost like it's a fog that clears when you get really, really healthy. Joanne says the same. So yeah, I think it's true for so many of us. But so with your relationships, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with emotional and spiritual. It's about boundaries. And so when you don't feel good about yourself, you're usually not setting healthy boundaries with people. And you're usually attracting people who don't feel good about themselves and who are negative. And so when you have that in your life, it's just like anchors, just weighing you down. And it's hard to move forward, you know. So that's what I found when I was at my sickest and heaviest. I looked around my life, and I didn't really have people who were for me. You know, they were people who wanted to hold me down and didn't believe in me. And so the kind of people who just sort of rolled their eyes at me, you know, and so that you don't want to have those types of people in your life. And so what I had to start doing was setting healthy boundaries about how those people were allowed to treat me and talk to me. I also set some boundaries about what things I would tell them, because we've all been there with people in our lives who we know are going to poo-poo everything that we want to do or say, and yet we talk to them anyway. Like, I stopped asking for advice from those people or talking to those people about what I wanted. And eventually those relationships, because I set hard boundaries, those relationships sort of fell away. Because people who are not respectful of your boundaries, as long as you stick to them, they just kind of decide, I'm not playing that game, and I'm going to move on to somebody that I can abuse. So that's the thing about, people who are unhealthy, is they want to be around other unhealthy people, because that's the only way they can manipulate. So when you start to get really healthy, you attract healthier people into your life. Or maybe the people in your life decide they want to be healthy too, which is ideal. That's great. But sometimes that's not the way it happens. Sometimes it's the people in your life are like, no, I want to stay down here in the pit. And if you don't want to be down here with me, then, I can't be around you. So it's, but setting those boundaries is the only way that you're going to get free. You cannot drag people into successful mindsets or successful places in their lives. They have to want it. And so if you're surrounded by a lot of people who aren't into that, or they want to just, make themselves feel better by putting you down, or, whatever these things might be, you're not going to be able to really effectively move forward. You need a tribe of people who believe in you and support you in a positive way. And that doesn't mean that you have, it's not all yes men, you want people in your life who are honest with you, but in a loving way, because that's the way you want to be able to treat people as well. So as you get healthier and you can connect with people in a healthier way, you want to attract people in your life who are healthier. And so at the beginning of my journey, it was kind of lonely, because I set those boundaries, and basically no one in my life wanted to abide by those. And so I had to wait. And then as I got healthier, I started to get people into my life that were healthier as well. But it took a while. It took a while to do that. Lori says, misery loves company. Embrace the people who build you up. And yeah, we are that group. So that's what Lori is saying. And so when people come into the Plant Power Army, what they find is a group of women that are supportive and positive and real. And we want everyone in that group to succeed. There's not one bit of competition or jealousy in there, because everybody has been there. And so it's a healthy environment, and that's what you want. You might not have that right now, but that's what we've created in the group, because I know how I was really, really lonely. I don't want anyone else to go through that. And you don't have to, because there are other women. That's what we find when we start being open with people who are healthy, is that they don't judge us, and they, understand. And it just takes some of that burden off, because you realize you don't have to be perfect, that you can be doing this. You can take 2 steps forward and a step back, and then take 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, but you're continuing to move forward, and you're doing it in a safe environment. Joanne says, it's never too late to set boundaries. Raise your hand if you were 46 years old when you learned that boundaries even existed. So yeah, Joanne always talks about how she didn't know about boundaries until I told her. She was, having some situations, and I'm like, well, why don't you just, not put up with that, basically. And she was like, wait, what? So, and it can be hard, especially if it's with your family. Boundaries can be tough. And especially when they're not used to you setting the boundaries, they can be tough on you. I've had, my family certainly wasn't open to me setting any boundaries at all. But I feel so much better. And I was able to get through it basically alone, but it was pretty excruciating. And that's why we have the group, is that if you do need to make changes, having some people behind you who are really positive and real and cheering for you, that is so important. So in your life, building the right tribe, it takes a while, but it is important, and it is totally worth it. Like my life does not look anything like it did 15 years ago in any capacity. My relationships are better. I'm happy. I'm healthy. I am reaching my goals. I love all of the women in my life. I didn't even have any good female friends back then that were really worth anything. I'm in a good marriage now. So like all of my relationship with my kids is better. Like there's nothing that hasn't changed, and it's because I changed. And so that is, it starts with you. And when you set the boundaries, and when you say, I demand healthy relationships, then your world will change in every capacity. So that's building a healthy life. It is building a life that you love, that you're excited about. It doesn't mean everything goes right all the time, which I can personally attest to in the past 2 weeks. But it means that you still love your life and you're still moving forward. And that's the physical health, the emotional and spiritual health, having meaning, the goals and the focus, and the healthy relationships. So is there anything else that anybody wants to say about that before I segue into talking about how this helps with depression and anxiety? Because it's really about structure. I know I have a delay, so that's why I'm waiting for a second. Okay. Joanne says, if you need help getting started setting boundaries, please message me. I'm all over it now. Yeah, that's so true. So I always tell people setting boundaries is addictive. It's like the first time I set a boundary with my mom and said, listen, I'm not going to allow you to talk to me like that anymore. I thought I was going to vomit. I was so scared. And I was, what was I? At least 40. And so actually I think I was like 42. And it was so hard. But after you set a boundary and you learn you can do it, it's like flying. It's like then it's just addictive. Like you're like, where else can I set a boundary? I'm going to set a boundary over here and I'm going to do one over there because it feels so good. It just feels like a weight is lifted off of you because you're in control. You can't control what other people do, but you can control your boundaries. And so it's, and Joanne is right there with me on that. So she is the person to talk to. Okay. So I wanted to segue into depression and anxiety because I just wanted to tell my personal story briefly. So, in around the year 2000 or 2001, I was diagnosed with dysthymia, and that is long-term depression, just like low depression. And at that time, I had been depressed for at least 15 years. And so that was 20 years ago. So we're talking about the majority of my life being depressed. I'm 51, so we're talking about being depressed for about, 40 at least of those years. And so I know a lot and understand a lot about how depression affects your life. And, along with depression always comes anxiety. And so it's back then, before I really, knew I was depressed and sad. But I didn't understand it, in my younger years. And it really, every day was a struggle. I really did not want to live. And I could not figure out how to end my life, though, without hurting other people. My goal wasn't to show anybody, like, oh, I'll get them by hurting myself or anything like that. I just didn't want to go on. And so a lot of my, my early life was spent thinking about things like that. And then once I had kids, which was in my early 20s, I realized that I was never going to do that to them. And I thought, well, if I can't, if I'm not going to kill myself, then there's no point in thinking about it all the time. So I just stopped thinking about it. And I just, but I still every day was a huge struggle for me in terms of my depression. And so it was, once I got diagnosed, I got on medication, and medication is great. If you are depressed enough that you cannot function, that you're having trouble getting out of bed, then finding the right medication is great because you can get out of bed, and that's huge. It's huge just to get out of bed. So I had hit a very low point, and I was struggling with even, depression wears on you after many, many years. And I just could not even, I was having trouble getting out of bed. And so the medication gets you out of bed, and that's great. But what it doesn't do is make you happy. You still have to work on that. So you may or may not need medication, and if you are on medication, there should be no stigma there. That's why I'm always honest about it, because I've been on medication now for 20 some years, and it's been great. It helps me get, like I say, on a level playing field with the rest of the world. Doesn't make me happy, but it just gets me out of bed. Gets me that's the start that I needed. But I still at that point had a lot of work to do because I was unhealthy physically and unhealthy emotionally. So I still had a lot going on. So what I have learned over the past 20 years since I've been on this medication is, I needed to have a structure in place in order to make my life work. And that's the thing is most of us, we don't set boundaries for ourselves. So not only do you have to set healthy boundaries for other people in your life, you need to set them for yourself. So just like if you have kids or no kids, if you're a, aunt or whatever, then you know that if you don't have any rules, that kids will just walk all over you. They're always looking to break down any structure, right? But yet they need that structure. They need the rules. And so your mind is the same way. You need structure for yourself in order for you to function. There needs to be some rules. There needs to be some boundaries. And that's what I found out with, my depression, is that there needs to be a structure in place to keep me, not just out of bed, but up here. So it definitely, I had to go through those 5 building blocks that I gave you. I had to go through all of that to begin to build a life that I loved. And it started with my physical health and like I said, medication just to get me out of bed. And then it built from there. But the boundaries that I set for myself are also about accountability. So with my nutrition and my exercise, for instance. So, I post pictures of when I'm out on a run. And I haven't always been a runner. For those of you who are just starting to follow me, I started out because I was, really sick when I started. I had never run in my life up until just a few years ago. So the thing I started out with was Zumba. And I absolutely loved it, especially because I hadn't felt feminine in so long. And so for any of you who have taken a Zumba class, it's kind of all about that, like female feeling of libido, sex appeal type of thing. And I was like, I haven't felt anything like this in so long. So it was so fun for me. And so what I did is I became an instructor. Once I was feeling well enough, I became an instructor. So now I have that accountability that I have to keep doing this because I'm doing it for other people. And I was a Zumba instructor for many years. Same thing when I decided I was going to then get some personal training. So I went to a trainer. And after I got really healthy and I came up with a routine, I'm like, I'm going to become a personal trainer. And so now I have to keep myself in shape because I'm keeping others in shape. And so it's the same thing now. I'm always posting pictures of my runs. I help other people to, get healthy with nutrition. And so I know that I am accountable to all of you, because you need to know that people can actually do this. That this isn't just special people who have it easy. That it's people who've had it really hard can do this, and so there's an accountability there between us, so that you guys know. I know that you're counting on that, okay, in some way, shape, or form. It's the same with you, though. So you create accountability in your life when you join a group like mine, because we have exercise accountability and weigh-ins and things like that. But also, just being a part of the group and saying what's going on in your life and participating, and we're doing 5Ks and Secret Santa and bingo and all kinds of book club and all sorts of things in there to keep you engaged. But that's the thing, is you need accountability in your life if you don't feel like you can be accountable to yourself. And so, for me, that's been a combination of being accountable to myself and being accountable to everybody that I help, because I feel a responsibility that I'm not just going to tell you to do it. I'm going to be the model. I can do it myself. And I want you to be able to see that you can do it too. So we all have to have that accountability in our lives, even if we don't think we have to. And Joanne says, don't be like me and be so stubborn that you think you don't need accountability or boundaries with yourself. So, right, that's the other thing, is we don't set boundaries for ourselves. And so setting a boundary for yourself looks like this. So I, a few years back, realized that I wasn't tolerating gluten well. So that's a whole different story, but I realized that was causing some physical problems with me. So now I don't eat gluten. That's a boundary that I have for myself. Now that may seem obvious, but I know people who have problems with gluten who eat gluten all the time. They're like, well, it tastes good and I want this bread and whatever. I don't do that to myself. That's a boundary that I have set. There's plenty of other delicious food out there without eating something with gluten in it. I know it makes me feel like crap. So the boundary that I have is that I can indulge, and I do. I post stuff, you guys know that I'm not pristine when it comes to, a whole food plant-based diet. Like I indulge some, but it's always plant-based and gluten-free for me. That's my boundary, because that is what helps me stay healthy mentally and physically. So that's just a hard line for me. If it has gluten in it, I'm not eating it. Period. Same thing with dairy, because dairy makes me feel like crap. Joanne says, once you set new habits, your boundaries will come stronger. Yeah, so it gets easier. Boundaries are hard at first, no matter how you're setting them. Lori says, I love accountability. I've always done better with it. Now I'm accountable to myself. Right. So the goal is that you're not always, you get so much stronger. I think this is what both Joanne and LT are saying, is you get so much stronger the longer that you're doing this, that your healthy habits become your boundaries, and then you don't need that accountability. In my program, it's lifetime membership, so you always have the group. I mean, you're always going to have us, but you become more and more accountable to yourself because you're becoming stronger. That's why it's called InnerStrength, because as you become stronger, then you can help others do the same thing. It's not just about you, getting to that point and needing the accountability. You get to the point where you're just doing it. But you have to recognize that at first you need the accountability, because and accountability is a two-way street, by the way. I can agree to help you stay accountable, but you have to agree to be accountable, right? So I can't make you accountable if you don't want to be. That's just, we're adults. So that's the other thing, is it has to be a two-way street. So that's the first thing, is to realize that you need accountability and figure out how you're going to make that happen. It could be like, I'm in a couple of running groups, and I'm not a group runner, but for the people who are, they do group runs all the time, or they post pictures of their runs. If they are singular runners, they'll post pictures like, hey, I ran today and here's what I did, so that they can get kudos from the group and encouragement. So there's, or you could say even, I'm going to do, a couch to 5K, and your accountability is that you've signed up for a 5K that's 3 months from now. So you've got to do it. And that could be, it could be like, I used to do Zumbathons. So maybe you're going to do a Zumbathon, And those are like a 2-hour thing. That's a serious workout. And so you better start getting your Zumba on now. So it could be walking. It really is. It has, your accountability could be around anything, but it's tied to a goal so that there's an endpoint. You know that you have this much time. And that's why we do, so many things like that in the group. Like, hey, we have our 5Ks quarterly. There's different things that we do where your accountability is tied to a goal to help you keep moving forward. So that's important to think about. And then, like I said, the boundaries that you set for yourself. The other thing that I do, and I posted about this yesterday, is, the boundaries that I set for myself now are, I don't listen to my own crap. So just like everybody else, I'll get that script running in my head, like, oh, you don't need to work out today. You're too busy. You can do it tomorrow. Run twice as far tomorrow. One day isn't going to hurt you to skip it, and all of these things. And the thing is, in the big scheme of things, one day would not hurt me. I've certainly done that before. But I know that if I'm not consistently out there, I try to get out there every other day. If I'm not consistently out there, I'm not going to get the health benefits. Okay, so that's the boundary that I've set for myself, is that my goal is to get out there every other day, and I don't listen to my own script. So yesterday when that script started running, it was like, I have all these errands to run. Just the fact that I have to go to the park and run now is just like stressing me out. But instead of cutting that out, because I knew that would make me feel like crap later in the day, I cut out one of the errands, which I'll be running today. So you have to, again, be aware of your own mess, enough to just be like, I'm not, just like with a kid. It really is like that. Your inner child is very much like any other child. And as soon as they see that you are not setting hard boundaries, they're going to push. Like, yeah, we don't want to run. So, they're going to keep working on you. That's what your inner script is doing. And so you have to just keep shutting it down. And now that I'm in the habit of shutting it down, my life is so much easier because I don't sit around arguing with myself and making deals with myself and bargaining with myself about how I'm going to do this today, but then I'm going to make up for it tomorrow. And we do that with our food as well. I'm going to eat this today, but then I'm not going to eat anything else for the rest of the day. And then I'm going to do this tomorrow. Like, we just do this all the time, and it's mentally exhausting. So you have to set those boundaries with yourself that you're not going to do that. And then again, the last thing is just accountability to a tribe. The tribe matters. It's not just any tribe. Believe it or not, I am not a group person. I am an introvert. And so if you were to ask me on any given day, do I need a group to be accountable to, or do I need a group to function? I would say no. But the truth is that having that support it's amazing to really have a positive, engaged group of people in your life who are rooting for you, and you're rooting for them. And that helps you stay healthy. And so there's just no denying that. We are designed to live in community. And so it is important to realize that your tribe is everything. They can pull you all the way down, or they can lift you up. So getting into the right tribe is important. And I know there must be some really negative groups out there having to do with health and weight loss because of how much different the women in my group tell me that this is. So, I mean, if you're part of anything like that isn't working, then keep looking. You don't have to stay, not all groups are like that. Joanne says, recognize self-sabotage, call it out, shut it down, and show up for yourself. Right. You just have to be as firm with it as you would be if it were somebody else. So that is what's going to help you. Those are the things that have helped me to stay sane. As someone who has dealt with long-term, very low depression, I know that structure matters. Structure matters to me. And and you know that because when you're depressed, that's when structure goes by the wayside, right? You're like, you're not working out, you're not eating right, things aren't getting done, the house is a mess. Like, structure starts to fall away, right? So when you're building a life that you love and you keep that structure of, okay, I have these boundaries for myself on nutrition and exercise, so I'm keeping that part of myself healthy. I have set healthy boundaries in my life with other people so that I don't have all these people dragging me down. You know, when you set up that type of structure, then it helps to keep you buoyant so that when things don't go right, you don't collapse. Joanne says, I wake up every day with so much gratitude in my heart for this group and how they have saved me from my self-destruction. Yeah. I mean, that's a really profound thing. And, you know, it's powerful to call yourself out on your own bullshit. It really is, because you can take control. I really believe, like, when I think about depression, so much of that is just, and anxiety, is feeling out of control. Like, I can't control anything. And like, everything is just weighing on me. Everything is overwhelming. I don't have any empowerment. And so feeling empowered in your body, in your, relationships, in your thinking, that is everything. When you feel that way, you can build a life that you love. You have a life that you love because you love yourself. It all starts with loving yourself. It's not about hating yourself. If you're starting there, I can guarantee you, you're not going to succeed. So you have to decide, I'm doing this because I care enough about myself to do it, because I love myself enough to do it, not because I hate myself and I can't stand myself and I'm sick of this. Like, I get it. I do, because we've all, I've told stories about how I just have, would break down in tears about what I had let myself get like. But you have to decide that you do this because you love yourself. Because if you decide you're doing it because you hate yourself, then you've already decided you're not worth it. So you've already decided that script running in the back of your head that says, you're no good is right. So we're not playing into all of that mess. What we're saying is, I am worth it. I am amazing. I just have a lot of stuff covering that up right now. And that's how you move forward, because you decide that you are worth it. Lori says, same, overwhelming gratitude to be off the hamster wheel. Yeah, because we get stuck in that place where, I talk about that loop of the standard American diet, the stuff that's making us sick, getting on the yo-yo dieting train, getting sicker and heavier over the years, getting into the medical industry and getting on medications, and then you're just stuck in that wheel, not just physically, but you're mentally stuck there. And so taking control of your health, mentally and physically, is so empowering, and it is so worth it. It's change, but it's worth it. So I thank all of you for tuning in. I'll tell you what, with these technical issues, I don't even know what to say. After all of the things that we went through to get our Zoom in place, and we were so excited to be back on track, I wake up this morning and my husband's like, hey, the internet's out. And they said it won't be back on until this afternoon. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. And I'm glad that we could at least do the live stream and get all this stuff out there. And we will be back next week with the InnerStrength Empowerment Hour. Please feel free to comment, whether you're watching it now or the replay. We always come back and look at the comments, and we're always happy to help and encourage you. So I hope you are having an amazing day. Have a good, healthy, relaxing weekend, and I will talk to you soon.